The comment of the day goes to Bob Biggle, and he says, if Chewbacca knew Luke and Leia were siblings, why did he not stop them from making out? I was always under the assumption that maybe he didn't know, but then again, maybe he did know. He is from a different culture, so maybe it's accepted there. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The best answer gets a pin. What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm Net Alliance. Welcome back to another Friday Funday. Today we have a video that is the 8 massive Star Wars plot holes the prequel stupidly created. I'm actually going to watch this video. I hear that there are some things you can pick at and figure out that like they might be nitpicking here and there. But I do want to see just how legit this list is, and maybe I can debunk some of their facts that they have here. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing in this video. Hope you guys enjoy. For more Star Wars content, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more good, juicy Star Wars content. So with that said, let's just jump right in.
Quick note before we start though, I know that most of these things were later explained away in the books, games and TV shows of the expanded universe, but that's because the mistakes had been made in the first place and someone had to tidy up the mess. What we're doing here is looking at the 6 movies in isolation and seeing where things fell down. If you see someone in the comments section saying, lol, shut up Peter you moron, that plot hole was explained away in Tales from the Tuscan Brothel issue 159,
this happens all the time when it comes to to just like Star Wars YouTubing. This is like, there's always that someone in the comments you have to like explain something, especially when like later when you say something in the video and they had to comment right away. Instead of watching the entire video and just absorbing it all, they decide to just instantly attack you on this one fact. And then later you'll probably like explain your reasoning for that, and they're like, oh well, I'm just gonna leave my comment down there anyways. And people are funny sometimes.
Point and laugh at them and reply with, rewatch the intro, you dig.
That too. Sometimes people like to skip over the intros. Stop skipping over intros. For each video on YouTube, when it comes to being a YouTuber, you have like 1 minute to kind of get your intro out of the way. So you guys got to do that 1 minute, get it done, and that's it. Some guys sometimes go a little bit overboard, like WhatCulture here. They sometimes take like 2 minutes to do intros, and that's too long. You have a minute to do your intro, get your facts out, say what you want to say, plug your stuff, and then move on with the video. So when it comes down to it, make sure to always watch your intros because they're very important, especially when you start complaining about something and then it's like, well, go watch the intro. It happens to me all the time, honestly. Just watch the intros for your videos. Give them the first minute. That's it. That's all you got to do. Now, with that said, let's continue.
Dingbat. Okay, let's go. Number 8. Why did technology suddenly become a lot less advanced? Now, before we fall into the trap of saying this is simply down to improvements in CGI, just really have a think about what's actually in episodes 1 to 3. Not the way it's portrayed or the quality of the visual effects, but what's literally in there. Sleeker ships with more versatile weaponry, militarized droids and fully automatic blasters, even better quality holograms. I mean, look at the Republic AT-TE used during the Clone Wars, and then look at the AT-AT on Hoth. Center of gravity. Why is it so tall and thin? I have no issue with the prequels having more advanced CGI and cinematography than the originals, but there's absolutely no excuse for the older machinery being blatantly better. Now, some fans think this is all okay because original trilogy Star Wars is set in a war-torn period of galactic history, and sure, that might explain why civilian tech is worse as of A New Hope. War can be a very cruel mistress to the guys at the bottom, but it is a categorical fact that military technology, i.e. the very well-funded Imperial stuff, always gets better during conflict. That's just how it works. It's called an arms race. That's basically all war has been about since like 1700. Put simply, the designers should have made a deliberate effort to include just as many flaws and limitations in prequel tech. Number 7, Luke.
That was always something that I noticed too. Like the prequel tech in the prequels, it looks better. You know, it does look superior when it comes down to it. So it is kind of weird when you watch the films that way. But if you look past that, I guess you can nitpick that. But that's not really that big of a thing because it's a big universe. We're just not seeing all that extra tech. You know, we're not seeing Coruscant in the original trilogy. Although technically we did, but we're not seeing that without the special effects. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't make Coruscant without special effects. That's just incredible. You know, it'd be so annoying to do that. It's stuff like that, like Sure, the technology seems to have gotten worse, and, you know, it really does look like that. But I look at it more as, you know, you got to understand the time periods of the films. And I wouldn't really say that's as much as a plot hole, as much as it is more of like just a little nitpick. So I'm not going to count that one for that, for them. So, yeah. Luke's training is far too quick. I'm probably going to agree with this one.
Luke's training is far too quick. Now picture the original trilogy in complete isolation of anything else. No prequels, no sequels, no expanded universe. Under those limits, there's absolutely no precedent at all for how long it ought to take to train a Jedi. Ben Kenobi and Yoda never specify the details. For all we know, if the Force is particularly strong with you, it might just take a long weekend at an all-inclusive conference to unlock your abilities. This means that whether you think Luke was on Dagobah for 5 days or 5 months, and there are arguments for both, it could still make total sense why he's able to hold his own against Vader in Cloud City and ultimately defeat him only 1 year later. Maybe that's just how long it takes to train a gifted Jedi. 5 days. Months. However long this was. Oh, actually no, never mind. Episode 1 shows us that sufficient training takes literally decades and decades, and preferably has to start when you're barely out of dungarees. Little Annie, for example, is told he won't be trained because he's too old. Look how young he is, he's too old! Now, I'm not suggesting the prequel trilogy should have portrayed various Jedi Padawans completely mastering every aspect of the art within a few weeks just to fit in with The Empire Strikes Back, but they could have maybe hinted that specifically lightsaber combat is very, very easy to pick up if you're highly force sensitive or something. That would sort of explain Luke's miraculous victory against his chosen one father after just a year of study, but also leave plenty of scope for what we know to be years-long training in all other areas of the Jedi arts. Number 6. Why did...
Okay, you know what? Yeah. I kind of agree with that one. I think a lot of the part of, like, the Jedi being too old, it's not as much as you're too old to be trained, it's more like you're too old, you have too many attachments already. You know, you have too many other thoughts going on, and you're harder to manipulate to your cause. Anakin being the best example of that. Luke, of course, being older, and Obi-Wan and Yoda not really having a choice. You know, he just kind of fell into that role. You know, so I do think that it does seem like he trained a little too quick. It was about a year between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and he seems to be a completely different person and his scale of power. So that's something that always kind of bothered me too. So I'm going to give that one to this. We'll do that. Yeah, I'll give him this one.
Did Obi-Wan age so rapidly? Ewan McGregor is brilliant. He is Obi-Wan through and through, and I'd never entertain the suggestion of a different casting. However, this one really is simple maths. Revenge of the Sith takes place 19 years before A New Hope. Old Ben Kenobi's age minus 19 equals what should be Obi-Wan's age in Episode 3. Alec Guinness was 63 when they shot Episode 4, and the hair and makeup team purposefully aged him even further. So basically, they should have either cast someone older to play Obi-Wan or aged Ewan McGregor in all 3 movies, I suppose. It's a bit of a mess and definitely not sufficiently explained by the people who say Ben just looks like that because he's got PTSD and has been living in the desert for 2 decades. You don't become a walking fossil in 20 years just because it's a bit hot and sandy outside and you've chopped your best friend's legs off. But hey, on the bright side, E. McG is now the perfect age for the inevitable anthology film set between the 2 trilogies, for which he's repeatedly stated his interest. I can't wait. Number 5.
Yeah, me too. Kenobi movie, let's go. But anyways, that's what explained. You can say that, you know, the movies don't explain that, you're right. If you take out the novels and all that extra stuff, lore, the movies don't explain why Obi-Wan looks so old. And I remember when I was younger, I remember seeing that and being like, you know what, that is weird. But now that we have the actual explanation to that, when it comes to Star Wars, as much as you want to just look at the movies, you can't just look at the movies. You got to look at everything when it comes to just everything about Star Wars, right? So the explanation of that is because of the 2 sons, and the 2 sons age you quicker because of just 2 sons. You know, Obi-Wan wasn't used to that. He wasn't born in that range. And so then when he moved to Tatooine and was there for so long, he just grew older so much more quicker. It might have been due to this stress too, but I think a lot of it has to do to the 2 sons just aging him a little quicker. So that's all it is. Also, Obi-Wan in Episode 3 is 38. he'd be 57 in A New Hope. So he does look a lot older than he's supposed to be, but that's because of the two sons. So there you go.
Why did Ben Kenobi hide in plain sight? While we're still talking about Ben EK, riddle me this. Obi-Wan and Yoda wanted to keep Luke and Leia away from Vader and Palpatine and also stay hidden themselves after surviving Order 66. Yoda went to hide on what is effectively just a big ball of moss and fog that can't be penetrated by scanners or other electronic instruments if Luke's X-Wing approach is anything to go by. Good choice. However, roly-poly Kenobi, withering away at a worryingly unnatural rate, took Luke to his actual uncle's house, former home of Anakin's actual mother, and then settled down in the very near vicinity, unashamedly choose to continually wear his Jedi robes, maintain enough of a mystical reputation that Owen openly describes him as a wizard, head into town often enough to have a working knowledge of Mos Eisley and its cantina, and change his name from Obi-Wan Kenobi to the totally different and brilliantly misleading Old Ben Kenobi. It's the same name. Prequel trilogy Star Wars could have greatly reduced this ridiculousness by at least keeping Shmi and Anakin well away from the Lars moisture farm or even Tatooine entirely, and by having Jedi wear totally different clothes in the days of the Republic. If they'd done that, Old Ben would just be some crazy guy in weird robes who lived on an entirely unremarkable desert planet. And why should the Empire care about that? Number 4.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's always a little weird to me too. But when it comes down to it, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You gotta think, the galaxy is massive. Billions and billions and billions of people. I'm sure Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's not the only Kenobi out of the entire universe. I'm sure there are probably hundreds, thousands of other Kenobis in the universe, you know? So you can't really just say that. I get the idea that, they went back to the Lars homestead and Anakin knows about that, but why would Anakin go back if there wouldn't be any reason to go back? He doesn't know he has a kid. Why would he go back? There's no point. He's got military stuff to do. He's got his Emperor's bidding to do. There's no reason to go back because he doesn't know he has kids at that point. So, I don't know. That's my explanation on that. I think that's pretty interesting. But, yeah.
Why did Anakin revert back to Hayden Christensen as a ghost? To be fair, this problem comes down to George Lucas constantly remastering things, but it is a plot hole that wouldn't exist if the prequels hadn't been made, and therefore it makes this list. Star Wars Episodes 1 to 6 are at their core about the rise, fall, and subsequent atonement of Anakin Skywalker. In the very last moments of his life, Darth Vader becomes the man he once was, redeemed at last. Then one day, George Lucas decided that Hayden Christensen was the only light side version of Anakin, and so Sebastian Shaw was a dirty evil Sith, and so this is what his ghost should look like now, and so fuck the entire point of a world-famous 6-movie saga painstakingly constructed over a period of 28 years. Good. Number 3. How could Leia remember...
I don't really care about that one. I see what people mean. That essentially the idea being that like Anakin was the last time he was in the light, so therefore he came back as a Force ghost. But you also have to consider the fact that the older guy, his name's Shaw. I forget his. I'm sorry. I should know his name. I know. The guy who played Darth Vader, he technically came back to the light in the end, and I get that. I think it's also. The reason why it's mostly changed is to kind of just tie the trilogies together even more. I think it works better in my opinion. When I was younger, I didn't really understand it. I mean, I like the idea that Hayden was in episode 6 because, Anakin's in episode 6. Yeah, it's cool. But it wouldn't make sense for old Anakin to be in there. I mean, you could do that, and it does make sense from a certain point because older Anakin is Darth Vader, right? But for me... the way I see it is that, although younger Anakin was originally on the light side, and then he turned to the dark side, and then he does come back later when he's older, I think it just kind of gives that extra closure onto the entire saga. Because we've seen Anakin in episode 3, and we haven't technically seen Anakin since episode 3 until episode 6. So when he dies, he becomes the Anakin we remember, and that's kind of like an extra sign of, hey, Anakin's back. So that's what I think of when I see that, and that's why I'm okay with it. And that's just my opinion, of course. But everyone has their own opinions on that one, that's for sure.
Her mother when Padme died in childbirth. This one is utterly ridiculous. How did they make this mistake? It's like they came to a crossroads with a left turn for sanity, but decided to peel out in the other direction towards f***ing Moron Town. I don't know, I'm ad-libbing. Leia, do you remember your mother? Your real mother? Just a little bit. She was very beautiful, kind, but sad. Well, yeah, I suppose she would be a bit mopey given that she was dying in childbirth at the time. What was Lucas thinking here? All he had to do was have Padme survive her labour and then go and chill out with Bail and Leia on Alderaan for like 2 or 3 years tops before kicking the bucket. That said, Padme's death did give rise to a very underappreciated bit of dialogue between Vader and Palpatine. Anakin's first question after he's been chopped up, set on fire, and locked inside a black suit is, where is Padme? Is she safe? I don't know if it was deliberate from George Lucas, but to me, it acts as a very subtle seed for the fact that there really is still a little bit of good left in him. The same glimmer of light that Luke can see in the original trilogy. But God, Leia remembers her dead mother. Number 2, Kenobi.
I always saw that as... I thought that was weird too, but I always saw it as... remember, Leia is also Force sensitive, just like Luke. And the Force is very interesting, and especially if you consider The Last Jedi, Yoda as a Force ghost used lightning to blow up that tree. You know, the Force is very unexplained. We've known that Anakin himself actually had the ability to see visions of the future, of Padme dying. So, in a way, why couldn't Leia see visions of the past? You know, even if it isn't her past, why can't she just see through the Force? Maybe she can see her mother through the Force. It sounds like a thing that makes sense, so that's what I've always just went off of, and I think it's all right. So I'm okay with that one.
Kenobi doesn't recognize R2. Old Ben says he doesn't remember ever owning a droid. And okay, fair enough, he technically never did own him. However, there's absolutely no way he doesn't at least recognise the blue astromech before him, which is still called R2-D2 as it always has been, Obi, remember that? And has evidently been in the hands of the Organas, according to the message he's carrying. R2 accompanied Obi-Wan on countless missions alongside Anakin, and the last he knows, R2 was in the possession of Bail Organa. It's staring him right in the face. Some argue he's just keeping his cards close to his chest, and doesn't want to confuse or scare Luke with too much information or too much truth so early on. But why pretend you don't know a droid that's already claiming to know you, and yet openly talk about the Clone Wars, the Jedi Order, and Anakin's quote-unquote murder at the hands of Darth Vader? He's either totally forgotten about the most objectively incredible droid he's ever encountered, or he's choosing to lie about really weird and unimportant details. Either way, it makes no sense. And number 1...
I'll give that one to you guys. I always thought that was kind of odd too. I just saw it as what Anakin was. Not Anakin. I always saw it as Obi-Wan was just pretending not to know R2 because he was just kind of just keeping some things from Luke, trying not to bring a bunch of stuff out in the open for Luke to know. And you got to remember, it's a lot for Luke to absorb. You know, he just got thrusted into this whole new world. And so it is a lot for him to absorb, and I just feel like that's another aspect he didn't really want to bring up. So I don't know. I think that's interesting to me, but that's my opinion on that, of course.
To recruit Luke would break the rule of 2. As established in episode 1, always 2 there are. No more, no less. The dark side basically subscribes to the idea that 3's a crowd, and a Sith master and apprentice are essentially forever out to kill each other. That's fine, we can accept that both Vader and Palpatine know this full well. But for some reason, they openly talk to each other about bringing Luke over to their side so that the 3 of them can all Sith around together like a big black-cloaked trinity. But with the rule of 2 in mind, it leaves this enormous elephant in the room where the pair of them know that they want to kill each other to be replaced by Luke, and they know that they both know that they want to kill each other, and yet they're putting on this awkward and pointless pretense that they can just bring in a 3rd Sith and it'll all be tea and cakes and top banana for everyone. It would honestly make more sense within the context if they were just texting each other, hey man, just FYI, I'm gonna tempt Luke over to the dark side and then probably kill you or something, I guess. Ha ha ha, oh my god, I was thinking the exact same thing. God, we're so in sync. Sort it out, George. And that's our list, but I know I've missed some.
Yeah, that one's kind of weird too. I never thought about that one, honestly. But that's part of being a Sith, you know. Part of being a Sith is trying to always just outdo your master / apprentice. You know, the idea that you always want to try to be better than them, and eventually find a replacement once you find someone stronger and younger. You know, that's part of being a Sith. So I think that one's okay, but you're right, that is kind of weird. So there we go, guys. That is the video. I didn't really want to dissect it as much as I did, but it was a pretty interesting one. Did you guys like this type of video? Want me to see more like dissecting videos like this? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more Star Wars content. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.